Alright, so in this demo, we are going to draft the vest, and we're going to do this from our Slim Fit torso slopers. Okay, so I have my front and my back. Let's push the back aside for a minute, and we'll start with the front. This is going to be a simple fitted vest. There we go. Oops. And you'll notice I'm using my Slim Fit torso sloper, which we're going to actually even make more fitted than it is already. So first thing I'm going to do is put down my placement line. Right there, looks good. There we are. And let's take our sloper, put center front right up against it. There we go. And now we'll go ahead and trace off the sloper. There's many ways to do vests. This is just one type of vest. And mark all our lines, our balance lines. There we go. We'll put this aside. And let's mark our chest, waist, and hip. There we go. Okay, so let's start drafting our vest now. So again, we're going to reduce this. We're going to make it even smaller and more fitted than it is now. And this is actually going to end up like a V neckline. All right, so here at the intersection of shoulder and neckline, we're going to measure in 3/4 of an inch from the neckline down the shoulder. And we'll mark that. Okay, then here at intersection of armhole and shoulder, we're going to measure in 1.5 inches. Let's go ahead and do that. And then if we come down here to the bottom of the armhole and side seam, we're going to measure down side seam 2 inches. And we'll mark that. Okay. So now we have our new shoulder. Okay, so we reduced it. We removed all this and all this. It's just between these 2 points. So let's go ahead and true that in. And we also need to draw in our new armhole. Okay, so this is we were expanding or opening up that armhole. So what I'm going to do is give myself a guide. Here I measured in 1.5 inches. So I'm just going to measure down off my armhole 1.5 inches, like so. All right, and then here I measure down 2 inches. I'm going to measure out, or I'm going to measure 2 inches off my armhole, like this. Okay, and now this is kind of giving me this guide I can follow, because I just want to come down like so and blend the two together. Just like that. All right, so I've kind of eyed it. Now I can go ahead and take my curved ruler or my French curve, whichever will work, and I can true that in. So right about there, it looks like. Let's find a curve that I can blend in there. It's right about there. Like so. Okay, so there's my new armhole right there. All right, let's continue on. I'm going to bring it in at side seam. All right, so I'm going to come in here at side seam and waist. And I'm going to measure in 1/4 of an inch and mark. All right. And now I want to establish where my hem is going to be. So actually I'm going to kind of divide this up from waist down to hip into thirds. So if I measure that, I get 8 7/8. So let's call it 9 inches. And let's take 2/3 of this distance. So if we go down 6 inches from waist, that's where the bottom or the hem of the vest will be, right there. Okay, so let's go ahead and connect armhole to that 1/4 inch mark at waist, and then down we'll connect that 1/4 inch mark at waist to our new hem. There we go. All right, continuing on. Our vest is actually, it's going to come up, so it's going to be higher at side seam and it's going to be lower at center front. So I'm going to measure, let's measure up about 1.5 inches from our hip line. So I'm measuring up from hip line, 1.5 inches. I'm going to mark that at center front, right there. Okay, and I'm going to extend that line out about 3 inches from center front. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually kind of curve and blend this line into there. And I'm just going to find a nice blend point somewhere in there. So I'll just kind of sketch it in first. I think looks good. Yeah, right about there. And now I can go ahead and start blending that. Okay, and I didn't blend it right to this point. I kind of blended it wherever it blended in, right around here. So that's about 2 inches from center front. Okay. All right, next thing we gotta do, this is our center front here. Okay, our button's gonna have a closure on it. Let's say buttons, so we want to add an extension for our buttons. All right. Typically this depends on how big your buttons are. We're gonna do, you could do 1 inch. Let's do 3/4 on this. So I'm gonna go ahead and measure off center front, 3/4 of an inch. Okay, should extend my hem out to that. There we go. And I'm going to measure up. Here is, so we're going to have a V-neck coming in. Okay, so here is my waistline right here. I want this V-neck to come in pretty deep. I'm going to measure up about 1 inch off a waistline. Okay, so that's where I will connect my neckline to. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. Here's my shoulder notch at neckline, and then here's that point. I just measured 1 inch up. So let's go ahead and connect those 2 points, giving us our V-neck. We also, so chest line used to come to right here. Okay, we're going to drop that down to intersection of side seam and our new armhole. So I'm going to square off center front and draw that in. So new chest line. Again, we want this to be nice and fitted, so I'm actually going to put a dart in here. All right, so right where, here's our directional notch in the armhole. In our original armhole, that's our directional. I'm going to square off center front. Okay, so I'm squaring my rule off center front. And I'm going to bring it down until I meet that directional notch. And I'll square a line in, like so. Okay, I just squared it in so it intersected with my new armhole. All right, now I want to square off my waistline, and I want to bring my ruler in until it touches that guideline I just drew where it intersects with the new armhole. Okay, So let's go ahead and squaring off a waistline, bring that in. And there we're intersect. Okay, there we are. Now we're meeting that. Let's go ahead and draw a line down to the bottom, from that point down to the bottom of the vest. Okay, this is going to be the center fold line of our dart. Here's our new chest line. I'm going to measure down 1/2 inch below that chest line on that center line I just drew. That will be the dart tip. And at the widest point of this dart, I want it to be 1/2 inch total. So I'm going to measure out on either side of this center line of the dart 1/4 inch on the waistline. Okay, so I measure out 1/4 and 1/4. And then down here at the dart opening, I'll measure out 1/8 of an inch on the other side of that dart, the center line. There we go. And now we're just going to go ahead and blend this. Okay, now you can do this with a curve. Okay, but you could also do a straight line as well. All right, so connect this point to there and then to there. Okay, I'll just do it with a straight line, like so. There we go. Last thing we need is our grain line. Okay, so again, I'll just square right off of my waistline. Make sure the grain line extends from the bottom of your garment all the way to the very top. And mark that. There we go. And there's our new vest. Here's our neckline. Come out to the front. This is the extension for the buttons. Here's our waist, or the bottom of the vest. We have our dart. Go in at side seam, armhole, shoulder. Okay, so that's the front of the vest. Let's go ahead and do the back of it now as well. Okay, so now we're going to do the back of our vest. I'm just going to head and extend out my waistline. And I'll take the back and line up the waistline of my back right on there. Okay, and I'll trace this off. Just mark my center back at the hem and at the top. And I'm going to mark my balance lines. That's already marked. Can remove this now. Go ahead and true in center back. Kick those 2 points. Okay, let's draw in our chest line. There. There we go. Okay, so what we did to the front armhole neckline, those measurements, and side seam, we need to transfer those same measurements over here, okay, to the back. We'll do a couple extra. Let's go ahead and start here at center back and neckline. We're going to drop this neckline down 1 inch and 1/8. So let's go ahead and drop that down, opening that up. Mark there. Okay. And then here at our back neckline, okay, what we did in the front, we measured in 3/4. So here we need to measure in 3/4 from neckline on the shoulder line. All right, and then shoulder and armhole in the front we did 1.5 inches, so that's what we're going to do here. At the back, 1.5 inches, we're going to measure in from armhole on shoulder 1.5 inches, and mark that. Okay, and then we'll come down here to the armhole and side seam, and we measure down 2 inches. So that's what we'll do here. Measure down 2 inches and mark. Okay. Okay, here at the back neckline, make sure we square in at least 1/2 inch. And now we can blend this point up to the shoulder, creating our new neckline. Looks good right there. There we are. We can also go ahead and draw our new armhole. Again, I like to, since I measured in 1.5 inches, I'm going to measure in 1.5 inches down my armhole, giving myself a guide. And then here we measure down 2 inches, so I'll measure off armhole 2 inches and kind of overlap the two, giving myself a nice guide. And now I can kind of see where I can blend the two together. Right about there. And let's go ahead and do that using our French curve and our curved ruler. I just need to blend it a little better right here. Right about there. There we go. Okay. True the shoulder line right here. There we go. Now let's go ahead to our side seam. And on our front side seam, we measured in 1/4. So on our back side seam, we're going to do the same thing. Measure in 1/4. And we also measure down 6 inches from waist on our side seam to the hem of the garment. So let's do that. And now we can connect armhole to that 1/4 inch mark. And same thing here. There we go. Okay, we're getting close. We're gonna, our back, again, we want to reduce, we want to make this nice and fitted, so we're going to take in some here at back. Okay, we're going to take this in so it's more shaped like a back. At our original chest line, we're going to measure in 3/8. So let's go ahead and do that. There's 3/8. And then at our waistline, we're going to measure in 7/8. There we go. Okay, before we can draw on our back line, we need to extend our hem across. So let's measure down 6 inches here. And connect. And at the hem, we're going to measure in 7/8 of an inch too. And now we can blend from neckline down to these 3 marks. We'll use our curve ruler. And find a good curve that kind of connects all that. And we'll blend it right up into there. Okay. Okay, we need to put in our new dart. Before we do that, let's go ahead and draw on our new chest line. So we drop down our armhole 2 inches. So I'm going to square off my original center back and bring up the ruler until it connects to the new intersection of side seam and armhole. And here's my new chest line. Okay. I'm also going to draw in a guide like we did in the front armhole. So I'm going to square off center back, and I'm going to bring my ruler up until I touch that first notch on my directional notches. And I'm going to square in a line that intersects with my new armhole. And then I'm going to square off waistline and move my ruler in until it touches where that intersection at armhole, that guide. And I'll draw a line down all the way to the hem of the garment. Okay, I'm going to measure down, so this is the center fold line of the dart. I'm going to measure down a 1/2 inch from chest line and mark it. That's the dart tip. Widest point of the dart is at the waist. I'm going to measure out a 1/4 inch on each side of waist, giving me a total of a 1/2 inch opening. Okay, our intake. And then at the bottom, we're going to do an 1/8. So we're going to measure out an 1/8 on each side of that mark, like so. And now we can just connect it. Draw that dart. Again, you could use your curve ruler for this and connect all 3 points, or you can just draw straight lines. Oops. There we go. Okay, last thing we need is our grain line. So I'll just square off of waist. And extend that line all the way from the top to the bottom. And then there is the vest. Okay, so your center front, side seam, and our center back. Shoulders, hem. Okay, all you'd have to do now is add 1/2 inch seam allowance and cut it out. And be ready to sew up. Okay.